Hello guys, and welcome to this hands-on session on debugging, where I'll basically be taking you through some useful tips for debugging your code and for making sure that everything goes okay. So if we start off with our first program, I'll start off by illustrating the OBS global option, which is a very useful way to just check that a random section of code is okay, and that there's no issues, and that what you get, basically you get what you're looking for, really. So if you start off by going options OBS equals 1000, no replace. So this is limiting the number of observations that get considered during your data steps or your proc steps, and then if you just go data test underscore ds for test data set, and then you set, or you read in the retail underscore purchase underscore com data set, which, if you recall, has 60,000 observations, and then you just run the proc contents on that test underscore ds data set. You will see that we'll only have 1,000, 1,000, there you go, the first 1,000 observations of that original data set. Okay, so really saves up time, and especially if you're talking about large data sets that take a bit of time to read into the PDV, running your code like this up front is really good solution, especially if you just want to, as we see there, to just check the variables and make sure that your data has what it's meant to have, really. So again, very useful solution for debugging purposes. Another option or another good practice that we touched upon is running procfrex on, say, your categorical variables, to make sure that you're contemplating all the options that you had in mind, or that you have all the cases that you'd expect to have. So in this case, if you just go procfreq data equals product underscore type underscore L, and then if I just tabulate, say, the product type, no com, no percent, that will be a possibility if I'm just looking to check the product type variable. If I actually want to check all of my character variables, I could also do that with the underscore character underscore keyword. So using that, you'll probably get a fair bit of output if you've got a few different sort of character variables. But I'm just going to run this so as to illustrate that. So because in this particular case, what SAS will do, will just go through your data set and check all of the character variables and tabulate those. Run the procfreq on those. So you can see there proc contents, and then if you start scrolling down, you'll see that for the product type, for the product key, basically for every categorical variable, there is a frequency of the occurrence of that variable. So in this particular case, if you want to check for duplicates in your product keys, that will be a good way of doing that. Just inspecting to make sure that you only have one entry for each product key. So that, say, the same product key isn't inputted to two different product types or product categories, for example. So that will be an interesting check. You could probably then subset the data and just print out the ones where frequency is greater than 2. But it just gives you an idea. I think you get the gist of it. Another option as well is, if you know up front, or if you've checked your character variables and you know what to expect, test out your data sets via some proc print. So for example, doing proc print where store not in the list of store identifiers that you're expecting. That will basically tell you via the log if there's any observations there where the store key isn't part of the authorized, or of the store identifiers that you're expecting, basically. So if you just run that, should be getting the results. If we scroll down via the log file, actually, you'll find that the log will be telling you that no observations were read. Notice that it doesn't give you an error, it just tells you that there's no observations matching that criteria, which is really what you'd expect if it all went well. Okay, so another option is using proc format. So in this particular case, let's say we want to create a format for the quantity, and we want to say, I don't know, low, between low and 2, it's less than 2. If the quantity is, say, think of something, so between 2.01 and 5, let's just write this sort of between 2 to 5. Then if it's greater than 5, up to 50, 5 to 50, and then if it's greater than 51, or greater than 50, let's just say, I want to call this an atypical value. Okay, so I'll just create this atypical description, which I'll use. I'll close off my proc format, and then, sort of, if I scroll down, I can check for the occurrence of those atypicals by using, say, a proc print, something as simple as that, in terms of printing out the values where quantity, so let me just print out the first 50 actually, but basically printing out the values where, if I can use the put function to apply the quantity format to the quantity variable, and equal that to a typical, so that basically I'm printing out any typical observations that we might have on that data set. So I just need to specify via the format statement that quantity is to be handled with the quantity format, the numeric format, recall that. Just run that, and then just run that proc print, and we will highlight those atypical values that you're looking for, basically. So if we go down, you see, there you go, the quantity variable is now being displayed as a typical, so it's showing you, say, typical transactions, and if you wanted to check if these are all in a certain product type or certain category, for example, that would be really useful. Okay, now another option or solution, especially when it comes to outliers, is to use the proc means or the proc univariate. Here we use the proc means, because it's a bit easier. So we'll just go proc means data equals basket underscore stats, and then say specify the stats that we want to check on this data. So number of observations, number missing, the min, the max, and say we want to do this for the variables some SPD and some QT. So if you run that, it'll basically give us the results for those variables, and we can scroll down and inspect that, hey, have I got the right number of observations, any observations missing, so the n miss, what's the minimum, what's the maximum, and what have you. Okay, so yeah, guys, I mean, this is really just a quick session. Really hope it's been useful, so I'll see you in the next lecture.